Okay, I'm Gert Sargent.
And I'm Cheryl Wazinski. I'm Gert's daughter. And I have questions for Gert about what it was like when she was growing up. And one of my questions is, what is the difference now in the kitchen between when you were 15 in Grandma's kitchen and cooking things and making things compared to your kitchen now?
Big, big differences. Yeah, for one thing, the cook stove was very different. When I grew up in my younger days, we had just a very small gas stove with 4 burners that we used in the summertime somewhat. But even in the summer, we used our cook stove that burned fuel, corn cobs or coal or wood. And water was different. We had no running water in the house except from the rainwater well system that had a little red-handled pump in the kitchen above a sink that brought us soft water, which we used to wash our hair and clean up at the sink. But for doing laundry, it was putting things on the stove, big copper kettle, and had to break the water with the lye and carry it into the house and carry it out to the washing machine and empty the washing machine. We emptied it into the outhouse to use the water completely.
Wow.
And cooking, I guess maybe Mom was the main cook in the house, but we did peeling potatoes and all the peripheral stuff, which was almost everything was grown in the garden. And our meats were grown at home. We had cows and pigs and chickens and ducks, and when it was butchering time, we would get the food ready and take it into the locker in Sioux City, which is a big freezer space that you walk into, and you would have a drawer that you rent, and you pull that open and you keep your foods frozen until you need them. And we ate very good. Mom was a good cook. That was before grills and before microwaves, and I guess we played hard, and we're always hungry. So food always tasted good, and it was good. We had a oval dining room table, and lots of times there were 10 or 11 of us around the table for eating. No dishwasher. We did dishes, washed them, and dripped them on a cookie sheet and dried them with towels. And we always sang songs while we were doing dishes, which was a good part.
Was the dryer allowed to reject it if it wasn't clean enough?
Well, the dryer said that the washer said, that's Bernice, that it's the dryer's job, yes, to make sure the dishes are clean.
No arguments happening there at all.
Well, I don't know about that.
What about, there was a time, roughly a year, that our family stayed with Grandma when my dad was in Korea. What are some memories that you have of that? We didn't drive her too crazy, I don't think.
Well, you probably have maybe even better memories than I do, but I stayed home. Well, I've always been stay-at-home mom. And Grandma was so gracious to give us bedroom space, and some things were maybe not as convenient there as what we had when we were at home. Cheryl reminds me about her washing machine downstairs was still a wringer machine. And Sherry remembers it because her hand went.
Put my hand right through those 2 rollers.
It pinched. Yeah. Then everything that came out of it had to be hung out or hung inside because there was no dryer. And you can imagine all your clothes you wear are not going through a dryer. But the ironing basket was never emptied. It was always ironing to do. The kids, I think, enjoyed it there. They had the outside area to play in. And they had the breakfast nook, which was a favorite part of the house, maybe.
Yes.
And she had her Siamese cat, which we enjoyed. And one story while we were there, when you go out of her kitchen into her basement, the door opened into the basement way. No, the door opened into the hallway. So Mom was standing at the top of the steps, reaching for something on the ledge, to get, and one of the kids came through and pushed on the door and popped her down the steps. She ended up with a cracked ankle on that. Other than that, I think we had a really lovely time with
Yes,
grandma's.
it was wonderful. Good memories.
And the kids learned from grandma.
Yes,
that
we
was
learned
important.
a lot. Yes. I remember mowing the yard with her rolling push mower with the blades that spun,
Right.
and we would take turns pushing it for so many feet. And she had us work, but it was never a painful thing. I mean, we had our chores.
Yeah, yeah, we did have to do chores. And
so tell me, so you and Dad dated in Sioux City.
right.
How did that go with your brothers and sisters? Were they supportive? Did they give you a hard time? Did you have to be chaperoned, or how did that work in those days?
Well, just as it was happening, it just happened. And in hindsight, or looking back at it, you wonder, well, even what did Mom think?
Right.
And there wasn't always a car available. I didn't have a car. I usually drove a car to work. I worked in downtown Sioux City. And John met me, or tried to meet me, at the time Ray and Marlene were getting married. And it was a busy household right then, and we didn't have much time to make new friends, which he complained about for years. But anyway, I think when Mom and Dad, when John came to meet him for the first time, he came dressed in all his custom-made clothes he had made when he was in Germany. He had a beautiful top coat on and a three-piece suit, and
Sure.
and he said, now remember to bring something for your head, because we're stopping at church for confession and rosary before we go out. So I think that sealed it with Mom and Dad. But for his part, it was December, and there was snow on the ground, and we lived on 3 blocks of slippery dirt roads. So I told him ahead, you just go in the cemetery and park in the corner of the cemetery and come up through the field. And he did, because he was an old farm boy too. So we had to walk back to the car.
Nice. Very romantic.
Well, I think it let Mom and Dad know that he was pretty sincere.
Yes.
There was one time when I know she didn't trust us. I was done work, and I was supposed to walk to a grocery store, which was maybe 3/4 of a mile from work, and catch a ride with one of the boys, and they didn't show up, and they didn't show up. And I ended up sitting on the steps of Healing, because it was just a block away. And I was saying my rosary. And when I got home, Mom says, well, you could have called. And I said, well, I did call. I called twice, and the phone was broken. And I know she didn't believe me. But then about 3 days later, she did realize the phone was broken. She didn't believe me because John was the one who ended up picking me up. He accidentally drove by and he picked me up.
Oh, nice.
But other than that, yeah, Mom and Dad had good faith in us. And John invited me to go to Clearfield. We hadn't been going together for very long. Actually, it was his brother's wedding in January 18th. We went together to Clearfield for that event. Stayed with his mom at his mom and dad's house. And I think Mom felt all right with that, because he came every day, so she knew him pretty well.
Nice.
So I think we're still on.
So
2 minutes.
Not a lot of time to answer a question. Can you think of any funny memories with your brothers and sisters, that just silly things that you did as children?
Yeah, a lot of silly things. We entertained ourselves back then with radio shows, but hikes and walks. And I know that when the bad weather came, we were supposed to go down into the cave, but we kept our root cellar, kept our canned goods and our potatoes and things. And then Mom would say, well, where's the boys? Where's the boys? And they're in the house listening to their favorite radio show all through the terrible windstorms.
Yep.
So, yeah. Silly. There was a lot of silliness. We had, singing was a big part of the family, I think.
Nice.
and playing tricks on each other. We had evenings when we would do kind of fun games. And
Did you have store-bought games, or did you make a lot of them up?
a lot of them were made up, but we did have store-bought games. We had, when Julius's kids or Louis' kids would come over, we often played outside, a lot of outside games with our
Yep.
cousins. So,
Okay.
thank you, Michael.
Thank you.